When humanity officially joined the Galactic Federation, the arrival of the human delegates did not cause loud celebration or dramatic speeches. Instead, it brought a quiet pause. Alan Reed walked through the wide crystal hall with steady steps, his hands folded behind his back. Beside him was Sarah Holt, calm and observant, her eyes moving carefully across the chamber. They did not look overwhelmed, nor did they look proud. They looked prepared. The hall itself was enormous, built by many species over thousands of years. Floating lights shifted colors softly, reacting to the emotions of those inside. When the humans entered, the lights stayed neutral as if unsure how to react. Federation members whispered among themselves. Humanity was new but not weak. In less than 3 centuries, humans had gone from their first spaceflight to building ships that could cross star systems safely. That alone made them unusual. The Federation speaker welcomed them with formal words of praise. Humanity's growth, their problem-solving skills, and their ability to adapt were all highlighted. Alan and Sarah listened without interrupting. They had heard similar words many times before. Praise, they knew, often came with expectations. Soon, the topic everyone waited for finally surfaced. By tradition, new members shared their advanced technology with the Federation. In return, they received protection, shared knowledge, and political trust. Many species had grown powerful through this system. The speaker spoke confidently, already assuming Earth would agree. After all, no one had ever refused. Alan noticed how several delegates leaned forward, eager. Others watched closely, their faces unreadable. Sarah quietly activated her tablet, recording every detail. Humans had learned long ago that listening was more powerful than speaking too soon. The Federation described humanity's energy systems, their stable artificial intelligence, and their efficient ships. They spoke as if these things already belonged to everyone. Still, the human delegates did not object. They asked questions instead. Simple questions. Careful ones. How would the technology be used? Who would control it? What rules existed if things went wrong? The room slowly grew less confident. These were not questions new members usually asked. When the session ended, no agreements were signed. No promises were made. Alan simply thanked the Federation for their welcome. Sarah smiled politely. As they left the hall, many delegates felt uneasy, though they did not yet know why. Humanity had joined the Federation, but they had not opened their hands. Something had changed, and the galaxy was only beginning to notice. The second summit was held in the same grand hall, but the feeling inside was very different from the first meeting. Before, there had been curiosity and excitement. Now there was expectation mixed with quiet pressure. The Federation believed this meeting would end with agreement. They believed humanity only needed time to adjust to tradition. When the human delegation entered, many eyes followed them. Alan Reed took his seat without speaking. Sarah Holt nodded politely to nearby delegates. In the center seat stood Lena Brooks. She was chosen to speak not because she was the loudest or the most powerful, but because she understood history. Human history. The Federation speaker welcomed everyone again and spoke warmly. He praised humanity's patience and said the Federation admired careful thinking. He spoke of unity, of shared futures, and of the strength that came from openness. His words were smooth and practiced. Many in the hall had heard similar speeches hundreds of times. Then it was Lena's turn. She stood slowly, placing both hands on the table in front of her. She did not project authority through force or emotion. Her strength came from calm certainty. Her voice carried easily through the hall, not because it was loud but because everyone was listening. She began by thanking the Federation for the welcome and for the respect shown to humanity. She said humans understood the value of cooperation and shared growth. Heads nodded around the room. This was familiar. This was expected. Then her tone shifted, not in volume but in weight. She explained that human technology was not built in a straight line. It was shaped by mistakes, failures, and painful lessons. She spoke of early human inventions that caused harm because they were used before people understood their full impact. Machines that promised progress but brought destruction. Systems that were meant to help but instead caused suffering. She did not go into graphic detail. She did not need to. The simplicity of her words carried enough meaning. Lena said humans learned slowly that power without control was dangerous. Speed without wisdom led to loss. Each step forward had forced humans to look back and repair what they broke. Over time they learned to build safeguards, limits, and rules, not because they wanted to but because they had to. The hall was quiet now. Even the soft hum of energy fields seemed distant. She explained that every human system was tied to culture, law, and shared responsibility. Technology alone, separated from those things, could behave in ways no one intended. Humans had learned this lesson the hard way. They were not willing to repeat it on a larger scale. One delegate asked why the Federation's rules were not enough. Lena answered calmly that rules written by others could not replace understanding grown through experience. She said humans respected the Federation's laws, but their own systems were built with specific human failures in mind. Removing them from that context would weaken them. Another delegate asked if humanity feared misuse by other species. Lena paused before answering. She said fear was not the right word. She said humans believed that even good people could cause harm if given tools they were not ready to carry. She said humans did not judge other species. They judged power itself. As she spoke, some Federation members felt uncomfortable. No one liked being reminded of mistakes. No one liked being told they might not be ready. Then came the moment that changed everything. Lena said clearly that humanity would not share its core technology. Not now. Not under pressure. Not as a requirement for belonging. She said this decision was final. There was no anger in her voice. No challenge. Just certainty. The room froze. This was not how these meetings ended. There were always negotiations. Adjustments. Concessions. This was different. This was not a refusal waiting to be softened. This was a boundary. The Federation speaker tried to respond, but even he seemed unsure of his words. He asked if humanity was open to reconsidering in the future. Lena replied that humans were always open to dialogue, but not to abandoning their responsibility. She said cooperation did not require surrender. Trust did not require exposure. Unity did not require everyone to move at the same speed. The silence that followed was deep and heavy. Some delegates felt insulted. Others felt threatened. A few felt something unfamiliar, respect mixed with discomfort. Humanity had not raised its voice. It had not demanded special treatment. It had simply refused to do something it believed was wrong. When Lena finished, she sat down quietly. She did not wait for applause. She did not seek approval. She folded her hands and looked forward. The speaker ended the session earlier than planned. No agreements were signed. No data was exchanged. As the delegates left the hall, conversations began immediately. Some questioned humanity's intentions. Others questioned the Federation's traditions. A few wondered how many past disasters could have been avoided if someone had said no earlier. Humanity had not broken any rules. They had followed every protocol. Yet the Federation felt shaken. Because for the first time, a new member had shown that joining the galaxy did not mean giving up control. And the Federation was forced to face a simple truth. This was not a negotiation. It was a line humanity would not cross. After the second summit ended, the Federation did not respond with anger or punishment. Instead, it responded with analysis. That was its nature. When something unexpected happened, the Federation studied it until it made sense. Human refusal had created confusion but also interest. To understand humans, the Federation turned to its analysts. Mike Turner was one of them. He was not a politician or a soldier. He was a systems reviewer trained to look for patterns, risks, and weaknesses in advanced technology. Mike had spent most of his life studying machines built by dozens of species. He believed he had seen every possible design choice. Humans, however, quickly proved him wrong. Mike sat in a quiet review chamber, surrounded by floating screens. Each screen showed parts of human systems that had been shared for observation only. These were not weapons or power cores. They were transport controls, energy flow models, medical networks, and emergency systems. On the surface they looked ordinary. Clean. Efficient. Nothing flashy. That was the first strange thing. Most advanced species liked to show power through complexity. Their systems were fast, strong, and impressive, but often fragile. One failure could spread through everything. Humans did not design that way. Mike leaned closer to one display. A human energy system had layers within layers. If one part failed, another took over. If that failed, a simpler backup activated. And if even that failed, the system shut itself down safely. No explosions. No overload. Just silence and containment. He frowned. That kind of restraint was rare. As Mike continued reviewing, the pattern repeated. Navigation systems that refused unsafe commands. Medical machines that stopped working if ethical rules were broken. Artificial intelligence programs that asked for human confirmation again and again before acting. There were delays built in. Limits. Warnings. Mike realized something unsettling. Human systems were not built to win at all costs. They were built to prevent disaster. He shared his findings with other analysts. At first, many dismissed it as caution from a young species. But the data kept coming. Every human invention showed the same mindset. Nothing operated alone. Nothing was allowed total control. No system trusted itself completely. One analyst joked that humans did not trust their own creations. Mike corrected him. Humans did not trust power without oversight. As more data was reviewed, quiet concerns spread through the analysis teams. Federation technology was advanced, but it relied heavily on central systems. Speed and efficiency were valued over restraint. Humans had chosen the opposite path. This raised an uncomfortable question. What? Mike requested historical context files from Earth. He was approved limited access. As he read, his curiosity deepened. Human history was filled with moments where technology advanced faster than society. Wars, collapses, environmental damage, social breakdown. Each time humans had survived, but barely, and each time they adjusted. They created laws, ethics boards, oversight councils, emergency shutdowns. They argued endlessly about responsibility. Progress slowed, but stability grew. Mike began to understand. Humans did not refuse to share technology because they were afraid of the Federation. They refused because they remembered what happened when they themselves were not ready. In one report, Mike wrote that no single human device could cause total collapse. The Federation Council paused when they read that. Many of their own systems could not claim the same. Quiet curiosity replaced offense. Other analysts added to Mike's report. They noted how human engineers expected failure and planned for it. How human leaders assumed misuse and tried to block it. How human designers accepted inefficiency if it meant safety. The Federation began asking new questions, not about what humans were hiding but about what the Federation itself lacked. Mike watched as discussions shifted tone. Less talk of enforcement, more talk of understanding. Some older members remembered past disasters that began with shared technology and ended with lost worlds. At the time, those losses were blamed on poor management. Now they wondered if the problem had been deeper. Humans had not said they were better. They had simply said they were careful. Mike closed his final report with a simple line. Human technology is shaped by memory. When the council reviewed it, no one laughed. For the first time since humanity joined the Federation, fear faded. In its place grew something quieter and far more dangerous to old assumptions. Respect. And the Federation realized that humans were not holding back out of pride. They were holding back because they knew exactly what power could do. The private session was held far from the main halls of the Federation. There were no flags, no large audiences, and no recording drones floating in the air. Only a small room, a round table, and a handful of senior Federation members. The lights were dimmer here, calmer. This meeting was not about tradition or ceremony. It was about truth. Paul Adams sat alone on one side of the table. He was older than most of the human delegates, his hair showing streaks of gray. He was not chosen for strength or charisma. He was chosen because he remembered. Paul had spent his life studying human history, not the victories but the failures. He believed those mattered more. The Federation speaker invited him to speak freely. No time limits. No interruptions. Paul nodded slowly. He took a breath before beginning, as if measuring the weight of what he was about to say. He told them that humanity had not always been careful. In fact, humans were once reckless. When they discovered new power, they rushed to use it. They believed speed meant survival. They believed progress solved everything. At first it felt true. Paul spoke about early human energy systems that promised endless power. They were built fast, deployed faster, and praised loudly. Then came the accidents. Cities lost. Land poisoned. Trust broken. Humans had to rebuild again and again. He spoke of machines that could think faster than humans. At first they helped. Then they replaced judgment. When errors happened, no one knew who was responsible. Humans learned that intelligence without values was dangerous. The Federation members listened in silence. Some had heard similar stories from their own pasts, but never spoken so plainly. Paul explained that humans kept repeating the same mistake. They created tools before preparing people. They gave power before teaching restraint. Each time the cost was high. Each time humans survived, but barely. Eventually something changed. After one near collapse, humanity stopped rushing forward. They slowed down. They began asking harder questions. Not can we build this, but should we? Not how fast, but how safe. Paul said humans learned that society had to grow with technology. Schools changed. Laws changed. Ethics became part of engineering. Children were taught not just how machines worked, but why limits existed. Progress became slower. Many people complained. But disasters became fewer. Paul leaned forward slightly and said something that made the room feel smaller. He said that once humans had shared powerful technology too quickly among themselves. Different nations raced to outdo each other. Fear drove innovation faster than wisdom. That race almost destroyed their world. He paused before saying the next part. He said that was why humanity refused now. Not because they feared the Federation. Not because they believed others were weak. But because they remembered what happened when power moved faster than understanding. Sharing technology without shared values, Paul said, was like handing fire to someone without teaching them what burns. One Federation elder asked why humans believed others would repeat the same mistakes. Paul answered softly. He said humans did not believe others were foolish. They believed others were normal, curious, ambitious, eager to improve, just like humans once were. He said mistakes were not caused by bad intentions but by rushing. Another member asked if humans planned to keep their technology forever. Paul shook his head. He said no knowledge should be locked away. But timing mattered. Teaching mattered. Growth mattered. He explained that humans wanted to share lessons first. How to slow down. How to build rules before power. How to accept limits without seeing them as weakness. The room stayed quiet long after he finished speaking. No one argued. No one demanded proof. The story did not feel like a threat or a lecture. It felt like a warning given by someone who had survived the fire. When the session ended, Paul stood and gave a small bow. He did not ask for agreement. He did not ask for trust. He simply shared memory. As the Federation members left the room, many felt unsettled. Not because humans had refused to share technology, but because they realized how close they themselves might have come to the same edge without ever noticing. Humanity had not slowed down because it lacked ambition. It had slowed down because it knew what happened when ambition ran free. And for the first time, the Federation began to wonder if speed was truly the same as progress. The decision did not come quickly. For many cycles after the private session, the Federation debated in quiet chambers. There were disagreements, long pauses, and moments of doubt. Some members still believed technology should be shared freely as it always had been. Others now felt uneasy about that tradition. Too many old failures suddenly felt connected. At last, the Federation chose a different path. Instead of demanding machines, codes, or power systems, they proposed something new. Humans would not give tools. They would give methods. Not devices but ways of thinking. Not power but preparation. When the proposal reached the human delegation, there was surprise, but also relief. Ivy Cole was chosen to lead this effort. She was not an engineer in the traditional sense. She did not design engines or ships. Her work focused on oversight, risk planning, and failure prevention. She believed the most important part of any system was not how it worked when everything went right, but how it behaved when everything went wrong. Ivy began with small groups. She did not lecture large halls or speak with authority. She asked questions instead. She asked how systems were approved. Who had the power to stop them? What happened when leaders made mistakes? Many Federation members were uncomfortable at first. They were used to solving problems by building stronger tools. Ivy spoke about slowing down. About testing limits. About planning for misuse, not just success. She introduced human oversight models. Multiple layers of review. Independent councils. Emergency shutdowns controlled by more than one group. No single person. No single system. Some called it inefficient. Ivy agreed. She said efficiency was often the enemy of safety. She showed examples from Earth. Projects delayed because risks were too high. Systems canceled because no one could fully control them. Profits lost to prevent harm. These choices shocked many worlds. On some planets, stopping progress was seen as failure. On Earth, it was survival. Slowly, member worlds began to test these ideas. Not everywhere. Not all at once. A few planets with unstable systems tried human-style risk planning. They added review boards. They added limits. They trained citizens before releasing new tools. The results were unexpected. Accidents dropped. Social unrest slowed. Systems that once failed suddenly lasted longer. There were fewer emergencies. Fewer silent collapses. Most surprising of all, no one felt weaker. Without new weapons or dominance tools, stability increased. Leaders made fewer rushed decisions. Citizens trusted systems more because they understood them. Power felt shared, not imposed. Reports spread quietly across the Federation. Worlds that once competed now cooperated. Instead of racing to build the strongest machine, they compared safety records. Instead of asking who was ahead, they asked who was stable. Ivy watched this from afar, rarely stepping into the spotlight. She believed success spoke best when it spoke softly. Some Federation members admitted something difficult. They said humans had not given them technology, but had given them time. Time to think. Time to prepare. Time to avoid mistakes they had not yet made. The Federation did not abandon its old ways completely, but it began to change. And for the first time in its long history, progress was measured not by power gained, but by disasters avoided. Humanity had not shared its machines. It had shared its caution. And the galaxy was becoming safer because of it. Years passed quietly without announcements or grand celebrations. Humanity did not rise through the Federation with force or speed. It rose slowly, almost unnoticed at first. There were no new superweapons, no massive fleets built in human style. Yet, over time, something changed across the galaxy. People began to listen when humans spoke. At first it was subtle. Federation councils started asking human advisors for opinions, not on how to build stronger systems, but on how to avoid failure. When disputes arose between worlds, human delegates were invited, not to threaten, but to explain how patience could prevent collapse. This alone was strange. In the past, respect came from power. Now it came from restraint. On Earth, life continued as it always had. Humans still argued, debated, and made mistakes. They were not perfect, but they kept their habits of caution. They tested systems again and again. They delayed launches when risks were unclear. They accepted slow progress if it meant safety. Other worlds noticed. A mining planet once known for frequent disasters adopted human-style oversight. Instead of pushing machines to their limits, they set strict rules and trained workers deeply. Accidents dropped. Lives were saved. Productivity actually increased over time. The leaders of that world sent a quiet message of thanks to Earth. A trade alliance near the Federation's edge faced constant instability due to fast-changing technology. After studying human methods, they slowed their development. They educated citizens before releasing new tools. Conflict faded. Trust returned. Stories like these spread, not loudly but steadily. The phrase human restraint entered common speech. At first it was said with confusion. Later with respect. Some elders of the Federation began to reflect on their past. They remembered worlds lost not to enemies but to their own creations. Machines that worked too well. Systems that moved too fast. Decisions made without understanding the cost. For the first time, they admitted that tradition alone was not wisdom. Humanity's refusal to share technology was no longer seen as denial. It was seen as guidance. Younger species newly discovered were treated differently now. Instead of being rushed into power, they were given time. They were taught methods before machines. Values before tools. The Federation changed its approach, not because humans demanded it but because the results were impossible to ignore. One day during a quiet council meeting, a senior member said something that surprised everyone. He said the Federation had mistaken generosity for wisdom for too long. Giving power felt kind. But teaching responsibility was harder, and more important. No one argued. Human delegates did not smile or celebrate. They did not claim credit. That was never their goal. Humans understood something deeply. Wisdom did not need recognition to matter. In private reports, analysts wrote that humanity had influenced the Federation more than any powerful empire ever had. Not through fear. Not through control. But through example. Humans had shown that saying no could be an act of care. Years after first contact, a memorial was built in a quiet part of the Federation capital. It was not for a war or a victory. It was for lessons learned too late. At the base of the structure were words translated into many languages. The original came from Earth. Power without understanding is danger. Visitors often stood there silently. Some did not know the full story. Others did. All felt its weight. Humanity had once shocked the Federation by refusing to share its technology. But that shock faded. What remained was something far more lasting. Humans had changed how the galaxy thought about progress. They taught that wisdom was not about how much power one could hold, but about knowing when not to use it. And because of that lesson, the future became quieter, steadier, and safer for everyone.